And there might be, it seems that this room will be used from 6 o'clock for some event or something that is coming up. So I will close this for a moment. And then we will also round. Today, we are going to talk about tech art. And let's just start this. All right, so basically, what does tech artist do? And before we go into details and all that, and generally what tech art even is and so forth, does anyone by any chance, online too, I'm keeping an eye on chat, did anyone do any technical art by any chance? Silence at least here, or kinda? How about online? Yes, at least one thumbs up. Well, that's great. All right, so basically, what does tech artists do? Unfortunately, this discipline is very rarely being able to do any official training, like schooling in that particular area and so on, and you will see why. So same thing with, I mean, VFX is more nowadays present even in the education, but tech art is still very, very wiggly when it comes to educational programs, because it requires customized approach, very individual approach to the project, and you will see very soon. But basically, the main thing that technical artists do or does is making other artists' life easier, like literally, because the most of other artists want to deal with, well, art, not necessarily technical things. And that means that technical artists mostly makes things way smoother when it comes to implementation, when it comes to even working directly in the engines of any sorts. And because artists are not just someone who do, at least in IT and gaming, we also do implementation. Now, depends on the team to team. Of course, you don't have to necessarily do it, but it is good to know at least how things are going. Or prepare it adequately for implementation if some coder will be doing it. But basically, tech artist is doing both coding and art production, meaning that majority of the tasks comes in creating tools, and mostly the tools that would be used for art creation. Now, that means that tech artist needs to, again, be artist, knowing what exactly should be done, how it should be done, and what kind of tool, what kind of features these tools should be having. And also any kind of implementation, syncing things together, making systems in place that makes all the updates work as smooth as possible without extra hands in between. Again, ideally. And also ideally, it would be that if you would put some asset in, if it's with the right wording, meaning the naming conventions and everything else, it would just immediately be in use. If only it would be that easy. Usually there are some errors and things, but we'll talk about that. Anyway, mostly it's making tools for bringing things together within the project that you're making. But also, technical artists are handling pipeline for art production. And you will see very soon what that really means in practice. And again, implementing, exporting, publishing, as well as basically handling the merges of any sort, especially when it comes to asset creation and asset implementation. They can also do actual content. They can do also rigging, animating, pretty much anything, including VFX and so on. So again, depends from artist to artist. So that's the thing. Like all of this belongs under the tech art, but there are so many overlapping things, which you will see also soon, that they can, why not? Especially in the smaller teams, usually the one who handles all of this is also handling some other, like animation, for example, rigging or multiple other things. But this pipeline of production, for example, this is where also this whole filing system structure, any kind of automation, and most importantly, version control. For those who are not necessarily from the deving sides, like any software development in this class, have in mind that version control is your best friend, which means that any kind of, so as it says, basically everyone is working on their own branches. There are multiple tools that one can use. So well, the tools out there usually, at least in gaming, mostly use GitHub, but there's so many opportunities, like different tools. It's really up to you what you want to use. The most important thing is to use some version control, because as we are working on different branches and different things, when the merge happens, things can collapse, and also other way around. If you need to return to some particular version, then it's not a headache to do that, especially if some major hiccup happened at any point. And also, tech artists could also do any kind of basically art production when it comes to as well modeling, but also creating shaders. Shaders are mainly math magic. So if you're into math and art, then shaders are for you. Basically, this is where those who are into math, then they really love geeking around shaders. And then they are also can be handling lighting. So I already mentioned that before, when it comes to this sort of like, you can have absolutely the same or basically existing assets with no touching any textures or anything else, but just changing the lighting, the position of it, it can change completely mood and everything else. So they could be, and there are actual lighting artists in the bigger studios, which means that some artists are handling just that. When you think about AAA production, any game you have played, most likely it has dedicated team of lighting artists, not mentioning tech artists. Then on top of that, VFX, which we will have next time in more depth, which stands for visual effects. And I'm sure that you are more aware of visual effects from the movie side of things. Well, it goes, of course, very much in our field. And then, of course, they could be also doing the interfaces and UI systems, at least creating this sort of like ways that it could be modularly done, possibly for different platforms. If you do cross-platform, so if you have a product that it's on PC, console, mobile, whatever, web-based, and then basically creating that automatically it would be, if you just change which formatting would be, that it could be also UI affecting as well. Now, one could say that certain engines do that, like Unity, for example, for game deving, but it's not always ideal, of course, and that's why we usually tweak things and customize things based on what we need to do in our products within engines that we use, or if we have our home kind of like custom engine in the house, then even more important to have your own customized tools. No, right? And then, oh, no worries. And then websites. So in smaller teams, usually they also handle all these kind of things when it comes to web design or any other platforms when it comes to community management, possibly even create different kind of things with Discord, syncing things around and so on. Again, pretty much anything that it's techie yet more serving humans, meaning regular mortals, and not dealing with kind of like being that translator in between. And I know this sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's mentioned, this is not usually everything on one person. It's usually a team. And even if you are in a smaller team, quite commonly it can happen that, for example, those who are in, maybe some animators who are also very eager to do more coding side of things, then they could also handle the tech art side. or VFX artists who are also, again, want to do more modular things inside the engine, then they can handle that. So basically, that's why it's really hard to, I mean, I'm sure there are courses, of course, there are courses and different kind of, like, especially private courses on VFX, on technical art and things. But again, it really depends which stack are you using, what tech are you using, which engines are you using, and also which even art production tools are you using. So everything has to kind of like, stars have to align in order to have something that is particularly for the need of, developer as such. But usually, as mentioned, tech artists within the teams are something that comes more as a as natural kind of evolution from their initial work or interests. And quite commonly, coders who are more into artsy things would be enjoying, especially doing, as said, shaders and rigging things and creating these systems for other developers to use and solving this type of challenges. Because again, they're completely different kind of coding challenges than they are what you are usually creating or usually doing in general development. So basically, that's in a nutshell. But now we are going to see what it looks in more depth from different angles. So usually it goes from making the tools. It starts with what do you need as an artist, like or creative or designer. Let's say it's not just for art production. This is also, for example, it can be also for narrative design systems. It can be for anything. Any content that goes into the product, they should be handling these tools. And that's the first question they will go. What do you want to do? How do you want to use, or what would be your process, ideal process for, as an, let's say, artist, as a narrative designer, to handle something within the engine, for example. And this is the most common way. Again, this is just a simple graph because, again, different teams will work differently, but this is mostly common to have this kind of streamline of how tech artist gets the task and then handles the task depending on the needs and priorities. So first of all, let's start with the development. Of course, development has its own schedule, and there are also expected results with it, as well as it's not always schedule. Usually comes also with this executive decision, meaning that someone is pushing certain schedule in place due to budget, due to whatever else reasons. Usually it's a budget, to make sure that things are running smoothly and that there are results at the end with the estimations done. So when we are in development, of course, things don't go smoothly ever. Just be ready for it. Even if you are 20 years in the industry, there will be still headaches every single day. That's just the way how things are. So usually it goes that we are developing and we need something new. Obviously, there is there is a tool request which will speed up something, especially if we want to keep up with the schedule. And this is where the tool request would come. Now, that is usually coming to the review. Mostly, again, how much that now will add to the schedule or basically mess up the initial schedule, which again needs to be approved by the higher ups. But let's say that if it is possible to still do it, then it's going to go down into actual development of the tool. And also after that, we'll go to testing and being in use. And then after that might be some other tool request. So it goes the same cycle. But basically, once it's being used, there might be some bug reports to the tech artist, what is not working well, and so on. So basically to improve it forward. But if it is not possible to do it now, because most of the tools that we create internally in our companies, for example, they're usually made to be used not just for one product, but for basically any product in the future. So this is your library of, palettes, tools that you would be using in the future as well for other projects. So everything that it's done, it's never just for one thing. It's meant to be used whenever needs comes up. But if now we cannot handle it due to whatever other fires there are, then it comes down to the wish list. So basically, we are seeing that, yes, there is need, not now, there are bigger things that we need to handle, but something that we will tackle later on in the next project or whatever. So we know that there is need for something to be improved for the future development. But then again, if there is something super, super eager, you have to, then you change the schedule and then everything goes again, depending what's the situation. But this is usually the cycle that goes, that one does not make tools for the sake of making tools, just like anything else. So it's really how these tools can create things or help you out with the schedule, with the, well, basically faster and better development processes, which would be then allowing buffer, if not even doing stuff earlier, but mainly buffer, because there will be bugs. There will be bugs always. So it's important to have that buffer time to test properly and address things with the product itself. So that's why usually we create these tools. And it's never just, again, just because someone feels like making tools. There is usual concrete need with a very concrete, what do we want to happen? And then they create these tools. Now, I know some coders that really enjoy doing some additional automations and whatnot just for the sake of doing it. And that's always good, but it shouldn't be, again, it has to follow the priorities of other development. And again, in the bigger productions, there is no place, just be aware of this. If you think you are doing something, so basically like this, I can give you one example from one Ubisoft story. So, and their producer is telling this publicly, so I can say it here as well. So basically, if you as a coder, it was not approved, your whatever improvement you want to do on the system, because again, there are many layers of why something is the way it is. And still you have done something that was not approved or it was not part of the initial plan, producer, who is not even a developer, will come in and literally reverse everything you have done. So there is a structure, there are rules, there are maybe even ego issues. Either way, be aware that you have to follow what has been given to do. The bigger the company, the more strict rules. In the smaller companies, usually we just, just tape everything, pretty much, or duct tape everything. And as long as things work, that's all that really matters. And then whoever can improve, yes, please. Like, that's kind of the thing. But be aware that in the bigger IT and gaming companies, they will not tolerate this sort of like, just you will do something for the sake of doing it. Literally, producer will review, like basically remove it, delete everything you have done. And it is don't forget, bigger the company, bigger the creed, and probably worse the product. Video games. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily worse the product, but at least there is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from actual developers behind it. Not necessarily from the leadership, unfortunately, but yeah, it is not. It's very common to have very toxic environments. Just be ready for that. If that is so, that's why when people are like, "Oh, I would like to work in some AAA studio," then be ready that there is a lot of different kind of things you need to be ready for, not just technical side of stuff. There is a lot of questionable leadership the methods that are being done. And it's not just abroad, in Finland as well. Like, the bigger the company, the more strict things are. So be aware of that. Right. Now that we are having this kind of like, is this all clear? Does anyone have any questions regarding the kind of like how the usual tool production, or at least tech art, comes? I will also keep an eye on chat. Alrighty, if no comments, let's go. So now, pipeline. This is so important. Documentation, first of all, is extremely important. We will be talking about it slightly later as well in the upcoming lessons, but the documentation here that we are talking about is not just about your, let's say, design documents and so on. We are here talking literally about creating, so these all new tools that we have in the house. For example, now you have 5 people in the team. And it's perfectly okay, by the way, it's not, but let's say it's justifiable that one person would have everything in their head. But let's say even if you have 3 more people joining, that's 8 people in the team. That's already more questions that might come, more needs of possibly even extra hands to do some of these things. So the sooner and basically as soon as you start creating tools, please start with documentation for these tools, because it can be that you cannot afford that one person has all the information in their head, because that person can be sick one day, of course, because that's what life is. And then also, or something else happens and you need information, or something is not working, someone else has to step in and fix. So please make documents immediately. And this is something that it would be how to use any kind of method, like all of these support documentation. So again, I'm not even here talking about the design documentation, talking literally about documentation of your solutions that you have in the house. So the more people have, the more important it is that all the documentation, also how you handle some stuff inside the engine itself, what kind of art production, for example. We will be next time talking about art production with VFX, and I will show you how art documents usually look like. But anyway, now what Tech Artist handles is creating tools for version control of the files. So we are not having this final of the final. We actually have proper naming conventions, which will be used again on various aspects, and then system will know where to take what when needed. So this is part of the automation, especially when it comes to loading things in the game and how things behave. So another problem with this is that quite commonly on the same even scene, not even mentioning same environment, but the same scene, there could be many team members. Like, just think more than 2. That's already too many. Working on the same content at the same time, which also means that all of these has to sync properly without any errors and things around. And if we don't use, if nothing else, the right naming conventions and so on, it's gonna kaboom. And that's a very, very common issue. And also, naming convention, what does that, again, what is the system that you would be using for what kind of assets, for example, where they're used, what type they are, where will there be, especially when it comes to this sort of layering, when you think about models and their textures and their rigs and everything else, and then all the effects on top of it, and every animation, how is that going to be triggered? All of these things. So think about it as a cake layer. So basically that all of that will go to the right place at the right time when needed. And that's also a big part of how are the folder structures, because that's really important to, again, when you have, it's fine if you have a game jam game with, 10 assets and whatever lines of code. But when you think about any bigger production, it is really, really hard to find the files within the system that you have, unless you have a proper folder structures in place. And again, the naming, because even if someone misspelled something, at least you could definitely see under what folder they should be, where they should be, and how they're, and then you can find it way faster than, you know, going manually through hundreds and thousands of actually assets. And then earlier you have the system in place, the better. Of course, it's never too late to improve things, but start from the beginning. The earlier, especially if you're doing solo projects, please, you have to handle everything yourself. So even more important that you create your own system is in place, that you have less headache in the future, because again, there will be different headaches coming your way. And this is also why is this super important, is that in case that we do need to do some mass renaming, like literally changing classes of something, changing any, like whatever is happening, then it's way easier to do that again, automate that when the things are properly done, than doing one by one and renaming stuff, which can be really, really tedious. So a lot of systems in place, like a lot of tools and systems, that's basically in the hands of tech artists, making sure that all of this actually clicks together. Because everyone else who uses and who creates the assets or uses the engine where things are happening, again, at the same time, things have to sync adequately. And that can be very, very hard. Now, about rigging and animating. So basically, mostly when it comes to tools, I mean, different engines already have, I mean, talking about existing engines on the market, which are commonly used, like Unity, Unreal, and so on, they do have their own, you know, rigging and basically animation aspects there that you can do that directly in there. But sometimes, as mentioned, it's not good enough. So if you want to put any, maybe if you're even doing motion capture and you want to use any actual movement by some actor or so, then again, you will need to properly adjust things and moderate, like basically create things inside of them that fits, again, your project. So this is as well, just as an example, but any other type of things for animators, what they need and how they need to be used depending on the project. So usually what animators do need are this type of systems of series of controls. So basically we are figuring out what kind of controls even they might be needing in the first place. And then what are these, in what type of movements are we, what is basically, then the weight painting. So that means that usually we have, like, there's like, it's how the weight based on the gravity rules and everything else we have in that project. So again, this is something we spoke on the animation lesson. So basically how things are behaving within then that world. And especially if so it feels like the character actually has a mass, that everything that character might be wearing also behaves like following properly. So it doesn't feel awkward when, let's say, some heavy element suddenly behaves like a very light one. And this is also, so with weight painting, we are figuring out how we control the bones and the masses in that sense. And again, sometimes they also animate, because of course they do. Nothing better to do than also to animate. So again, quite often they also do hands-on things within the systems they make as well, but their main job is to make tools, again, that others can handle on their own. So it's all about interdependency between different team members and different disciplines, because again, there's so many different disciplines that you have to create one particular product, especially in entertainment. So it is important that everything syncs properly. And easiest to do it is if you actually have these tools that are working across these different disciplines to make sense of it. Otherwise, it is a it's a mess already, but now it's slightly manageable, more manageable mess. And another example. So here's an example how that would look like. So I mentioned about customizing existing tools. So this is from Epic Games, and the kind of like how different mapping and things on the modular, on the, let's say, humanoid rigging, it would be looking like. So this is also a thing. It doesn't have to be done from scratch. You can customize, just like really go in and fix it up according to your team's needs. So basically, depending what artists would need, showing specific info from the level design on the screen so that artist or level designer can easily follow within creating more complex tools. So everything can be done in there as well. Just if nothing else, one can even do that certain things are just not going to be even visible if it's not meant to be used by, because it can be overwhelming if you think about this. If you enter any software tool and you haven't used it before, and suddenly you have so many things that you don't even know what they are for, but you need one very specific thing. So that's why if nothing else, just removing the things that you might not need on panels like these, just what it's visible that you actually need. For some, that's plenty, because again, it can be overwhelming. So this is where removing unneeded components comes in. Also turning on and off certain features, because again, you don't need always some features to, so why to even have it? Also, any kind of naming support, because there could be that if the system recognizes that certain assets, or especially if you are creating stuff directly in the, they can give recommendation for naming as well, and so on. So basically, you could have also that if needed. And then also cutting files in separate pieces and bringing them together when needed. Now that one is really, really big one, because when you think about animations that are being imported from other softwares, let's say from Blender, from Maya, ZBrush, from Spine animation for the 2D, it should work, just plug and go. It never does. So the things you will get on screen with different parts of body parts doing stuff around, it's always fun. So when things actually are being put together in the system, or packing them out in any kind of packages, depending how what needs to be exported. So this is also, that means that whenever it's put in pieces, when it comes back together, it actually works fine. And this one, now that is this last one, that's the headache of the century for every single developer. So when you have new files in comparison to the old files, and I'm not talking here about product that you have been developing for past few years. No. That's easy peasy. Imagine working on a game that it's having billions of players. And the game has been out for, let's say, 15 years. And the amount of legacy, not just the code that it's, I don't know with what, superpowers it's still holding, but also with all the new updates and everything else that it's being done on that game, not just with new code, but with new assets, new things, and new technical requirements, especially on the mobile. Because again, the Google Play and App Store, the stuff that they do when it comes to regulations and things and optimization, and it's literally every 6 months there is something new. We just had to completely revamp our apps and games on Google Play and App Store, because someone decided something, and we just did that sort of cleanup for even some of our older stuff in our team. So think about that. So again, not even just things being during this, fresh development, that everything works well with each other. So all things work well with new, and other way around. But also think about the legacy of the way bigger projects. So that's why, again, version control, making sure that everything is somehow holding together. It is that's what we can hope for, to be honest. And it's a miracle that any game has ever been made, to be honest. It's a pure miracle. I mean, stories from all developers. When you think about, I mean, when I spoke with John Romero about the Doom stuff, for example, and he was saying that he was in at university, and of course they didn't have. So he was writing code by hand, and then he would type it, and then he would go to university library to print it, and then to put it as so it was a whole thing. And just think about that. Just think about it. And nowadays, the amount of things we have, also free, like free tools. All of these tools are free. It has never been easier, actually. But then we had a retro game jam here in Turku some years ago, and one of the lead developers of Rovio came just to play around, and so experienced senior coder, and he wanted to make a game for PlayStation 1. And he said, look at this, like it was, and I mean, it was the joke of the day. I don't know how many hundreds of lines of code he had to do for just PlayStation 1 to actually have one cube moving around. Because that's the thing, and they had their black magic, how they did this back in the day, that actually everything somehow, but honestly, it's just one big mystery how any game ever got shipped from all the stories when you hear. And even nowadays, like it's quite a journey. But hey, things work, and that's all that matters. To give you one example also, this is actually from one local AAA. There are not too many, so therefore you might guess which game and which studio. So there was how was it? They were creating, of course, they had, I don't know how many levels in that game initially, and then someone decided that the whole basically area and bunch of these levels will be just removed. Just it was too much scope-wise, whatever, and they just decided to literally just remove it from the game. No biggie. Not the first, not the last time. And everything collapsed, like literally. Basically, engine did not work anymore. Nothing worked anymore. And then they were like figuring like why, like what is happening? Why is not working? Like the whole game collapsed. Why? And again, mind you, these are hundreds of people working on the game for years, and everything is, you know, the state of the art of development. And then they figured out that there was a 3D model of a rubber ducky, like a rubber ducky 3D model, which is not connected to it, was just decoration in a level. That was the cause. And when you remove that ducky, the whole game is gone. When you put it back, and again, it doesn't have any function, it's just model. Everything works. So they left the ducky, obviously, in the game and put it on a pedestal behind the glass. So that now it's in the level. So if you play and check around, pay attention on a ducky. And again, you can guess which game it is. So that's the thing. Things happen. You don't know how, why, but we figure it out and we go with it. And now it might be even more right. This is very team specific when it comes to tech art. What do you use? How do you use? Which engines do you use? For example, this company, they have custom engine in the house. So it's not even that you can have support from other developers. So it's in the house. And therefore, you do what you can. Now, about the shaders and other math magic. So simulations as well, besides the shaders. So basically, everything that brings things together when it comes to textures, lighting, any kind of surface work. Like that is really the part where tech artists and then like really step in. Any kind of, oh, sorry, this is misspelled. Any kind of liquid goo, any kind of weird material that would be used anywhere. This is something that they're figuring out. What are the, basically how this would be being used based on the, again, gravity rules that you have there. And then materials get more creative uses based on, for example, what kind of terrain surfaces you have or what kind of different other materials. So if I show you here this, so usually how it looks like, especially for the level design. So level designer, for example, is not a coder, might not be an artist, might not be any of the sources. So basically what level designer usually does is that gets the tools, and here this is about how it looks. And then let's say there is a literally like a Photoshop brush that you take and you say, I want this kind of tiles to show the road, or it can be just ground like this sort of like, so you can just literally draw based on where you want paths to happen or where you want cliffs to come already. Like you can reshape all of that and put different kind of these sort of textures, and also where vegetation would be, where certain spawning things would be, and so forth. So basically you are painting the world pretty much a god. This is the god complex, I would say, when you are as a level designer, because you are creating this world with the tools. But that's the thing, tech artists would be making these tools so that you can create those as such. And then of course any kind of additional simulations when it comes to cloth hair, fire, water, lava, whatever else might be happening. Because again, it might be that there is, let's say there might be rain, but there might be wind as well, especially if wind goes in specific. So maybe there will be change in the intensity of the wind, which will affect again the raindrops and everything else. And that's kind of the thing. All these simulations go there. But also, if your art style needs to be given this kind of more anime 2D, but yet it's 3D, so then this is the kind of also aesthetic rules that tech artist needs to figure out how this would be inside then done. That's when you put the right lighting with the right way to everything click together, then let's say it looks like basically, let's say 2D character, but actually, of course, everything is 3D. And while I'm going to ask you for questions or comments so far, I'm also going to give this paper and so yeah. Any questions about this? I know there's a lot, so any thoughts? Anything that comes to your mind? All clear, huh? Okay. So now, here's a very simple example of what we did in one of the mobile games we did. So basically, just simple. So mobile is especially problematic because of optimization. So especially when you have 3D models, and then it should be, for example, regular set the let's say events, seasonal events like Halloween, Christmas, whatever else, or it can be environment, again, following seasons of the, like the sort of the calendar seasons, in a sense that something is in summer, autumn. So for example, the leaves can change, the spawning of different decorations can happen on a specific, and basically what we do is that we make literal calendar, meaning that based on the actual calendar dates, it is triggered, meaning that I think I might be mistaken now, but for example, for Halloween, I think 10th of October or so, it kicks in the Halloween event already. So not necessarily from 1st of October, but somewhere there. And then it lasts also a few days after the Halloween. And then I think this is already might be on. So when the snow starts, I'll just say, so basically when the snow starts, so instead of the leaves and so on, there will be snow. And then of course the shader of the snow, kind of like that would be covering everything that you have. Now the amount of bugs we had with that, because again, you have to optimize it. So it's always snow, I mean, it has been quite a headache for the modelers, because they were handling all of the shaders as well. But yeah, that's a thing. But even something simple as this, it's so nice when things actually work, that you don't have to do this manually and make the builds, because builds for Google Play and App Store can take, even if you have everything approved, can take weeks for another approval, which is like, why? Game has been out for years. Why? No, It can take. So therefore, if you have this automated, you don't have to worry about. And that's why usually in the mobile development, we have content pipe, like basically lined up and uploaded 6 months in advance. So for example, now the bigger companies with their mobile games, they have now things for the next summer, spring for sure, but already now in development for next summer. So things are already in place. So they automatically just goes. So you don't, there's no moment of some flickering on, especially if the market, if the app stores are being especially crispy at certain times. So yeah.
When it comes to checking the system, and how do you check the system? They you check the scheme, or do you have an external database that holds?
No, it basically, because the game usually it has to be, I mean, basically the game is playable offline, but it has to be updated online every now and then. Like basically that's what every game on the market, even if you have it that you can download and play it offline, it will connect every whatever, depends now how user uses, but basically in our system, it's literally based on a public calendar that is online calendar, basically. And it can also then, so for our case, it's just because Google Play and app stores, they have like, it's always live. So therefore it just knows now this will be, so the game is updated, but now the user might be, that user might still be offline playing whatever, but next time it goes, it will trigger. But it might be, because this, I haven't been part of this one in a long while, but it might be that some of these, at least these major events like Christmas and Halloween, I think this might be even that you download upfront. When you download the game, you download also these packs, and then it might be that uses users calendar to trigger it.
So I can go and change my iPhone settings to be Halloween again, and I get the Halloween textures.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So that's a thing. But also what we have, because there are people who have been asking to be actually in our games doing this sort of like extra Halloween or extra this and that. So once, at least first time you have a Halloween event and so on, you can then later from the decoration part in the game, you can actually put pumpkins and stuff on your own. Like it's not even for Christmas, like it's fine. But that's the person, like this sort of, because you are decorating the environment, especially the house. So you can do whatever. But yeah, that's I think nowadays, because the way how also some things have been working, I think that nowadays you just, when you download the game, you also download these base packages, but then with the updates, there are new content that just comes when it's updated. Or then it will ask you, it's time to refresh or whatever, or new patch content, and then you have to connect to do that, and then it will give you more content. But depends on how one does. For us, it was very specific what we needed. We don't do live ops with this one at all. So only certain packs updates. So there is no problem. But when you think about games like any Supercell game, Metacourse game like Merge Mansion or King's Games or any mobile games, they literally have full daily cycle like this. These weekly events, monthly events, seasonal events, they all come to, like, it's the amount of content, and users are just like consuming that content it's insane. It's the consumption is insane. So that's why things have to be way down the line planned, and also of course lots of reusing of the assets. So of course you don't have to now, let's say, I mean, if I would be, I mean, I know this is also what Supercell does, but let's say if there is some item that would be, of course, you adjust things there, you like just small tweaks to it, and then already it's new. Or in this sort of like, yeah, decorative games, like basically very small amount of things you change, but it's enough if few textures are being changed, and it's fine. Plus for optimization, quite often, I think Supercell uses all the 3D stuff, but I know some others use basically 3D models, and then they pretty much, let's say, screenshot it in a sense that just from a specific angle. So that's why it's so much easier to change the texture, change things, and take another screenshot for this, especially isometric kind of 2D games. So it looks 3D, it behaves 3D, plus with the animations, but it is a 2D sprite. So it's way lighter for performance than it would be a 3D model. We did everything 3D in this, and don't ask why. It's all modelers want a challenge, and they got it. So that was a choice. I would not recommend that. Any other questions? Yes, go. No. It wasn't even meant to be. So basically, this is the one that I said that men between 28 and 35 are our apparently core audience. I don't know. We taught children/women, pet game. Nope, men. So no, hey, no judging. It is, we all have, things we enjoy, and if they're happy, there's nothing funky happening in the game. It's very straightforward. So you're taking care of animals, that's fine. Like it's, yeah, exactly. So basically, but it was the legacy of one project from before. So we didn't put, and besides, you can't, like as a small company or mid-sized company on mobile market, you cannot, there is no chance. There's simply no chance. You have to put, and I'm not joking, between 1.5 million to 2.5 million a month just on ads, just so that you could be seen. And this is and you have three major, like you have Zynga, you have Tencent, and then you have, but like these are the ones that hold the market. So, and then when people ask, why don't we, especially, Finland is the, center of mobile games. Why there are no more mobile games, except of course the big ones, but they can put 2+ million euros a month into ads. Like if I had 2 million just for ads, first of all, I would not be using them on ads because like what? But anyway, that's the business model, which is that's the problem. That's why you will see complaints on monopoly of Google Play and App Store, because it is a huge problem. And especially because only, and also if you pay attention, the game is called My Best Friends. If you try to search it in the search engine of the Google Play or App Store, at least I think it couldn't be found if you even search it, even on Google Play, because we don't pay any ads. But maybe if you search My Tale, it will give the apps, at least the ones that are on, like this sort of live. Which means that if you don't even pay, and think about this, Google is the biggest search engine. So if you don't pay, you don't get found, even with the search feature on Google Play. I mean, that's criminal. That shouldn't be legal. Like if you think about it, yeah.
I started my for the
eighth. There you go. Because we don't. Yeah. And we have a bunch of things that we have been doing throughout the. That's the like we don't. If you don't pay ads, you can't even be found in the search. So, and that's the business. So then when people say why Finland doesn't have any more like more mobile games coming, because it's not attractive. Why would it be attractive for anyone smaller, mid-sized companies? Why would we even, we don't have a chance if you don't want to put, and you don't want to, that's also ethically, I don't want to put money into that. If I would have 2 million, I would be most likely putting on save the animals and save the kids. Like that's kind of the things. Therefore, I would never have it. Yeah, there it is. So it works. Yes. So, but yeah, and the amount of ads on TV, internet, and video games can also ruin the experience. Oh, absolutely. Oh, hell no. That's another thing. We did not want to do any of that. So we literally, the only time when you really want to watch, like basically, if you really want to do something kind of like to really improve it, that's when you can watch the ad, but we never block or never put in your face the ads, which is another reason why we would never make money on mobile, because It just, again, not devs for that. But this was a legacy thing, so we wanted to at least, okay, put it out, but we are not doing mobile outside of doing for the clients. Absolutely. Like, we work with big projects and companies on mobile, but we don't develop for our own. Absolutely not. Also, I want to sleep at night. I used to work in mobile and I was doing the monetization design, and the amount of evil there is, I literally couldn't sleep. So I left the mobile. 5 years was more than enough. So besides this, my little therapy session with you, thank you for that. Let's go back to VFX. So now VFX, again, technical artists could also do that. Because of course, what a technical artist doesn't do. So optimizing the weight and assets of these effects. So here is the control by Remedy, screenshot. So now, if we just pay attention for 2 seconds on this. So not only that the character is going through, there is explosions coming up, all of the stuff is, so everything is colliding with everything. That means also that the particle system also follows the movement and everything else. And it's not just like everything is, so it's a whole, again, math magic of what happens with these collisions. And to make it that, this is where we have to make sure that all the sort of like systems are syncing with each other. So whenever it does happen, the, let's say, explosion, that the object behaves as realistic as it should be. And you can fake a lot of stuff from the angle of the camera from which you are having that. So basically you can fake from there. You can also fake with animations. So nothing has to be really like this sort of live. There's a lot of stuff we fake for the sake of optimization. But at the end, we want that it feels as, you know, as immersive as possible. And this is also where AI systems are in place, including, so all of this, like how things would be, like that's also its own AI systems in the game, which follow then all of these systems, how they should be interacting with each other. So yeah, but we will have, next time we will be talking about VFX. So then I'm not gonna go into details now, but tech artists are making all of this that it can work together, so that when the VFX artist comes in, they can create their black magic on top of the stuff. I already mentioned, for those who are playing or played World of Warcraft, but also now, also if you play League of Legends, if you play Overwatch, or if you play, well, basically any of these type of games, especially World of Warcraft famously, like the models that the actual characters and everything is done is 3 polygons. Like it's basically nothing. But all magic happens with texturing and faking the shadows there, and literally hand painting most of these. And also then when on top of that you have, so you're faking the lighting there on the texture while also doing the lighting to enhance certain things. And then you add, let's say, just simple particle effects. And it's already looking glamorous. So that's the only way how we can make such good quality immersion, but to be manageable, because literally no computer would be able to run it. It would melt in pieces. And yeah, so that's why we need these guys to do their thing, that we can all enjoy awesomeness on our screens. And then that also, think about this, this should be also running on a potato computer, as well as the Beast one, as well as console and everything else. So yeah, again, kudos to them for making it happen. And as a summary, at least from the tech art side, so what do they do? A lot of things, but also, again, it can be just one of those. So usually they do engine tools creation, any kind of this sort of rigging, skin, like all this sort of kind of tool creation, but they also can be adjusting things in existing production and the stuff you have in game engine. So basically any kind of iteration, moderation, even removing and then doing something else. So basically customization for various things. And they can also do actual production, especially when it comes to animation and rigging, anything like that. And this is also when it comes to systems, as mentioned, for UI UX. They can also create systems for lighting, especially if you have for different levels, different rules. So think about it. You are in medieval castle or whatever, and then you have this sort of moody stuff, but then you're outside and it might be more bright or might be dark, and then you go to the sewers and that's going to be completely different. So you have all these kind of systems for each level or biome or however you want to, region that one needs to go through. And yeah, and there is the source from this particular image, but basically this can be in the hands of tech artists, but that doesn't mean that, again, first of all, it's never one person. Secondly, it doesn't mean that tech artist does all of this. I'm just saying this could be coming under, depending on a team, depending on a person or a team who is handling it, let's say tech artist team, and then they share among themselves who is going to handle what. So none of this is, again, if this happens to one person per se, well, try not to have that, especially in your own team. Or then if they do, then there are different shortcuts. You just don't customize everything. You use existing tools. You do this. You have to pick your battles, or you work on a product 20 years. That's also an option. But mostly this is shared. So don't be afraid of that. But this is kind of like just so now you might understand why educational programs usually don't have necessarily full scope of tech art, or there might be, again, some introduction kind of course, because it's very product specific and stack specific and things that can be, and then personal individuals' interests. Because I said, mostly programmers, or then artists who are doing more of the 3D modeling, animation, and so on, they would be more into fiddling further with the program. And then these just individuals spawn in places. And then whenever there are good ones, then they get snatched, like, yes, by the companies. But it is a really fun job, actually, because especially if you as a coder are more into solving challenges, then tech art is amazing because there are so many challenges ahead. So, and you figuring it out, what would be the easiest way to use something that could be a cup of tea. For example, our CTO really enjoys that. He, for example, hates whole game engines and that sort of stuff, but he loves fiddling with the tools and systems and so on. So it's like, and servers and things. Yep, you do that. So, but yeah, that makes our lives way, way easier. Any questions regarding tech art? Yeah. Motion capture. So basically, that's when you have the suit. I'm sure you have seen, like basically actors. Most of the movies, especially action movies nowadays, are done with that. So you have a suit with the sensors. The system just follows the sensor. So basically it's not doing it. So then you need to see that actually the data of the movement would be cleaned up to be used in the way that it does, because there's a lot of different data that comes from it and you want to clean it up, like, because there's a lot that comes from the mockups. And then from there, you basically use it for smoother animations, especially in the human movements, very often being used. But yeah, motion capture. Any other questions? Online? Wakey. So, who would be up to be a tech artist after this talk? It's not that bad. It's really not. It's really fun, especially if you are into weirdness. And yeah, and solving things that you have solved 10,000 times already, but still the same bug comes. So try once, sure, probably. Yes, absolutely, Henry. So, hey, Game Jam is coming. Global Game Jam last weekend of January. I'm going to post about it. We just got, there will be a site in Turku, so physical site at Turku Game Hub at Pharmacity. And we are going to do games whole weekend, and it's a global one. So that's a best place to come and fiddle with things, like zero pressure. And plus there are devs there, so they can show you around. You can pitch. One can always pitch. But yeah, the companies are there. Yeah, game companies are there. Yes, we are also there. Yes. So bunch of us. Bugbite is there, the ones behind Space Haven. Fake Fish is not. They bought their office in city center. We will see how long we will be, honestly. We are considering buying the office so that we can actually decorate it, but we will be opening it up. The office. The physical, because when you're renting, you can't do anything. You can't even put the nail, like, and we want to decorate. We are nerds. We want to make it cozy, but no. So yeah, but we'll see. Like it's a whole thing. We have been there now over 10 years. Also, because like yeah, actually 10 years. Next year, no, it is 10 years. Next year is 10th anniversary officially. So yeah, Hype has been up and about since then. But yeah, best place to try Game Jam. Fiddle around with things helps, because all of this is also used in movie industry and in also other animation stuff and even marketing and whatnot, because depends. Most of the game engines are being nowadays used in other industries, also for visualizations, for architects and whatnot. So again, it's not just gaming and entertainment. All of this is being used elsewhere, and that's why it's really good to be aware of, at least literate about what means from these even terms and so on. All right, once again, any questions? All right, then let's talk about our Lord and Savior AI. Dear Lord. Okay, so let's talk about AI. And the things have changed, well, have been changing and will be changing every year further and further. The genie is out of the lamp. There's no turning back. It is what it is. But what is important is to learn what to do and what not to do, and also to be aware of what's happening with the AI development, but also what is happening with the AI in a sense of legal side of things, policies, literally laws and so on. And I'm sure if you are not by now using daily some AI tool, like ChatGPT, if nothing else, you have tried at least, right? Have you tried? Yes. Online, you don't have to pretend. We all, like ChatGPT is like, everyone is there, unfortunately. So the why I say unfortunately is not about the tool. Tool is it is what it is, but actually the amount of damage it does to environment is insane. So this is another issue we will be having even more in the years to come. But it is what it is. So now, they are the tools. All of these were free, of course, in the beginning. Some are still free. But for example, Midjourney is not. It's behind the paywall. Also ChatGPT 4, is it already 3? I don't know when they turned it's still there is free version, but from 4 forward, because there is now even 5, I think. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So there is kind of like, these things are constantly changing. Now, I will tell you some things where we are at with all policies and so on, but also what to be aware of, what not to do, and also how to use it. Because the reality of thing is that it's not going anywhere. It's actually going to be quite a problem in a different way than what you think. Because currently most of you might be worried over jobs, right? Like, let's be honest. Usually younger generations are worried because AI does it better than me. That's not true at all. AI is very good at tricking the eye and tricking the thing. And by the way, it's also what it's in the data set. Now, as they have scrapped the internet, what you can definitely make is pretty women, because the internet is full of pretty women. Any kind of pretty woman you can get. Try to make ugly woman, literally as a prompt. There's no way to make. Same goes with anything more specific you need. It actually cannot make it. And we even tried to, because we have to, like in our company also, like you have to be, first of all, you have to be literate. That's the main thing. Tools are now being used by companies. And it's not like I don't want to use tools, blah, blah, blah. You have to be literate because in the job that you will be there, they might be using some of these. And that's the thing. If you are working in some company, you have to use the tools they use. And there could be different kind of AI tools. Now, I want to clarify the difference between the AI tools that we create in-house from the Gen AI or generative AI tools. Now, games industry, as well as IT in general, but let's talk about, because mostly kind of like we're talking about this sort of visual stuff and so on, and narrative and music also being replaced by AI. Now, majority, like we in our industry, we had AI tools from the beginning, but they were homemade, meaning that they are made for our needs, and then the artist, whoever, would be adjusting things before, so it's never shipped directly, never have been, never will be. And the thing is that I will give you an example of Hearthstone. I'm sure you know Hearthstone as a game, card game, very good game. Nowadays also mobile available. So as a card game, you have this deck. So it's a free to play, but you have these decks that you can buy. And the thing is, the amount of variations that they had for, let's say, different characters, including, you know, monsters and whatnot, like all sorts of props, everything, like literally everything. They would have their own AI tools in the house to create variety of models that would be kind of based on the models that they have in the house. Because again, it has to be the same style, it has to be the same thing, but hundreds of variations, it's really hard. Like, again, it's a waste of, basically, when certain things are waste of work for the artist. And then when you have something to create for you, very kind of like this sort of variation, but then you take it and fix it and actually make it to fit also the story and everything else that you have in the game, which again is normal thing that we do in procedural creation when you think about creating assets that are used in procedural generation of the content in any game, because it's all modular development. Like you are making it that it fits various ways. And that's a normal thing. Like that's the AI that we have in the house, and every company has some of their AI tools. And that is, but again, when it comes to artificial intelligence, I want to clarify there's zero intelligence there. Like it's barely even among humans, not mentioning among AI tools. So we will call them AI, but there's zero intelligence there. So I want to clarify also that it's not solving anything. It is a tool that you as a creator can use, just like Photoshop. Every single tool in Photoshop had always been AI tool. Think about it. Even, you know, Eraser, it's an AI tool. But one does not say, oh, I'm using that. No, you're using the whole software for your needs. So, and no artists have been replaced with Photoshop. On contrary, it's more like that is tool that we use. Now, the problem what we have with AI, especially Gen AI, is that leadership of the companies are thinking that this is going to solve something instead of, or create, which again, there is zero intelligence, there is no creativity there. It has zero awareness what actually does, and it's only based on the trained data. That's it. And while it can trick, again, certain people into believing that these are solving things, they're not, because again, especially if it starts cannibalizing its own material, if it starts using, again, information from God knows where, and then you get, so it starts, and if you have used ChatGPT, it starts glitching every now and then, even paid version of absolutely not knowing what it's saying. And especially if you are using it for your academic stuff or your essays, and so please don't. If you have to, take something but rewrite it in your words, because it is full of nonsense. And I'm telling you for that, not because of like the wording. And so I'm totally saying that this is something that can literally flag because now there are even more rigid systems to check what has been used in what, especially for thesis and doctoral thesis and so on, and academic writing in a sense of articles and so on. So please be careful there, because it is literally the references that it gives you are mostly bollocks, mostly. So be careful. That's what I'm saying. Now, when it comes to how to use it and how not to use it, basically, at the moment, still, even from the moment it started, when the genie was left out, to this day, still everything that AI tool creates belongs to no one. And this is a really big problem. If you are creating an IP, let's say you are creating also, there was a really big case, and still is valid, of the comic, for example. So the artist did comic written on text, but used it was, I mean, as a writer, but he wanted to make a comic, but he wasn't an artist, so he used AI tools to prompt and get his comic, like the illustrations. So text is his, but not the illustrations. And that court case is still valid in a sense that everything that he has done, of course, belongs to him, but he has no right to the art of that comic, which is kind of the point. Because you can't do, the reason why, if you don't have ownership of AI, of IP, then you can't do any actual business licensing stuff or anything like that. Basically, anyone else can take that character, anything else, and ride with it, and you have zero right. So basically now, currently, everything that AI creates belongs to no one. It's a public domain. But now the question is how long that will be. Because we all know that this is the companies behind AI tools are companies. Most of them are in US. Now, there is the big problem there, because IP and licensing laws are based on different regions, which means that if you're here in EU or within the European territory, so not, it can be also kind of like Eastern European, because pretty much the same laws are around there. You have rights. You have rights as a creator, and you have ethical rights. Basically, even if you're working in the company and everything would belong IP-wise to the company, you have ethical rights to refer to, say that I worked on that and that. Nobody can ever take that away from you. But in US, they can. Basically, US laws are always corporate protection over human protection. In EU, slightly more towards humans, but still there are issues there as well. But still, we have some better ethical moments here and there. So now, it's a literally matter of time when companies who have these tools will say, well, this all belongs to us. Everything you created, it actually belongs to us. And you need to even pay the license, possibly, to use the things that you have created. And you can't do anything about it. I mean, imagine that happens. So, and you could have now products that you're now creating, and in 3 years this can happen. And what? You lost literally everything. So it's really, really problematic because all these laws are different in different regions. Different stuff is happening in, let's say, Asia, African continent, Europe. Like everyone has all, like, and also there is even country specific. So that's why it is so important that you are aware of what you should or should not do. So first of all, don't ever use directly AI created things for yourself, for your projects as a final thing. Now, usually what we use is, and I can tell you, like we, even in the company, we have been using mostly as a glorified Pinterest board. Because the reason is that quite often designers, coders, also clients, they usually have problem to articulate what they want, what their vision is. So there, play with this and come up with, like, see what you don't want at least. It helps because usually clients, they have no clue what they want. That's why they come to you. But they do know what they don't want. So this helps a lot in communication, that they can come up with something that actually they are like, there would be. So again, mood board. And same goes with coders, designers, and so on. If they cannot express themselves in what their vision is, make some examples, put it there, and then let's discuss it as a, again, like a mood board. Also, when you are creating prompts, that also belongs to the public domain. So your special prompting that you think, oh, my prompts are special. No, that is not a thing. And this is the case of that comic book. And also, the only way the art belongs to you if you alter the image, or meaning that you are using more. Now that has been changing again, depending on the region. Some say that you can't even alter in some parts. Some say that you can totally alter it and then it's yours. But then there is this whole thing with the percentage. Like, who is deciding what is the percentage of altered thing? Because like, if you alter it 70% over, but who is the one telling what's 70% of something? It's really weird. I'm just saying, it's a really gray waters. Don't get muddy. Like, that's the thing. Yeah.
But then also apply when you have an AI generated to trace it, or draw it by hand, but you follow what the AI created. But at the same time, you also fix all the mistakes, like.
No, but if you created, no, the thing is that we can always, like, as an artist, think about this. We are learning by copying. That's the process of learning. But also, if you are working, for example, you now get a job at Supercell, you are going to use their style, so you copy their style, right? That's the kind of the point. You go to Blizzard, you're gonna work there, like so your style is a different story. When you work in a actual kind of like any industry side as a creative, your job is to actually do the style that it's needed, that the project needs. So there shouldn't be a problem of you that's why mood board, it's a mood board. You're taking stuff and you're creating new stuff out of, and then you draw, as long as you're creating it, it's fine. But usually it's never, I mean, very rarely you have something to trace. Let's be honest, you are gonna create its own thing, and most likely there will be additional things that are changing. So you are creating your own. But that's different. We're talking here that you are literally taking this and now little, I don't know, maybe change the contrast or something. So it's a, that's kind of, that doesn't make it. So what has been really well done so far is, again, using for conceptualization, for figuring out things, for trying different palettes, let's say color palettes. That's really good. Like, if you want to test some stuff of what colors might be used to be better used for certain color blindness, for example, and so on. That could be, again, we are talking about something that it's not going to the final product ever. So don't do that, because we don't know what laws will be. That's why I'm saying this. I'm not saying this like, you will most likely have to use AI tools the moment you are in certain company doing job, because now they're everywhere. friend of mine who is a marketing person in a regular person with a regular job, okay, not entertaining, and she's in the marketing agency, and she said that they just got a new dude employed to be AI manager, which is like what? And then now she needs to start using AI tools inside that, even for their PR and so on. And she will like what to do. But it's very weird again what is happening with the overall cross industries again, nothing to do with us in Israel. But at least in order to know you need to know your enemy basically when you think about it. So we need to know all the strengths and weaknesses. There's so many strengths with AI generative. We're talking about generative AI tools. There are strengths there, mostly this kind of that it is accessible, which means that again, if someone, by the way, if someone thinks that this is going to solve and that's exactly what they need for their product, let them. Then let's say we are not fit for them to, I'm not going to waste my breath to explain it. Like, no, AI, great, use them. But if someone comes to, let's say, us to provide whatever it is that they need for their product, we'll do so. And there's a big difference there, what kind of product there will be at the end. And this is also a big discussion now in the games industry, because there are Musk and his Musky friends saying, for example, that they will make AI only created games. So everything will be done by AI, from coding to art to everything else. And I am certain that there's going to be players who don't care and who will also enjoy fully AI generated games. But currently, none of these attempts actually had any good experiences. First of all, as a gameplay experience. And secondly, we know how complex players are. It's the opinions and everything else you get, even like to actually satisfy a player and what their expectations are is insane. Like there's so much of the psychological aspect there beyond just something visual, let's say, that it looks cool. That's the least actually what it is. And as Del Toro just said in his interview regarding Frankenstein, most of the AI stuff, especially in movies, it just could pass as a screensaver, but that's about it. No actual quality of storytelling, everything else, interaction, and so on can come out of it, because again, there's no intelligence behind it, and therefore, and plus, most importantly, we don't even know who's going to belong to whom and when, because this is a matter of time when the corporations will just close the faucet. And then what? You don't even have what you have been developing. And as also Hendrik said in chat, US big corporates control basically the government, which we know, we see that. So there is also that issue. But that's the thing in different regions, because for us, most of our target market is the Western market from here. I'm just saying from here. And then, of course, China has its own thing with AI. They have their own things going on, their own regulation and their own tools. It's a whole thing. So it's very important to stay up to date, to be literate about it, to learn how to use it, and to learn what is possible, what is not possible with it. But for your own usage, please consider not to use it in the final product of any sort, any, outside of mood board. I said, glorified Pinterest, that it can do. Because honestly, it is really, really tricky situation where we are at with the state of the world. But even if you are, and again, we are not even touching the issues with the ethical issues and all other issues. So that's another whole thing. But the thing with the AI tools in general, do get familiar with it in a sense of how things are working, because there will be also, as in everything, there's always two sides of the coins. There will also be most likely coming actually controlled ethical things, which again, we as professionals will be using, if nothing else, with our clients or whatever happens. So, or you in the company that you work. So that's something that you have to be aware of, because that will be asked from you to work. And With all honesty, how many of you are actually afraid of these? Yeah, of AI tools in general, like as a where is it going? How many don't care? No care? Yeah, little of both. Yeah. I mean, as an old woman, I can tell you this is not the first time or the last time that we have tech innovation coming in. Like, you should see what happened when the internet came. So this too shall pass. But the thing is that, unfortunately, what's problematic at this very moment is that technology is going so much faster than the policy making kind of thing. And also this sort of, so there is this polarization and everything else is happening meanwhile, which of course never helps. And the thing is that we have to kind of, it will sort itself, just like any other tool so far. But it is a tool at the end of the day. It's not going to solve your problems. I have other course that I'm teaching, and I also have in that course, some are fully online, and you would see that some students started, everyone is using AI note takers, which is no problem at all. I mean, I don't mind. But they started using it to attend the class. Basically, AI note taker attends the class instead of them, which is like, if you are afraid that AI tool will take your job, how about you don't give it your job? Like, your job is to be in this class. Plus in the university, this is your choice. So you chose to be here. Don't give it your job if you're afraid that this will take your job. And then they figured it out. Oh yeah. But plus note takers are not even doing that good job with note taking. So yeah, it's also sad then. But thankfully I record all my lessons also, same like here. So then they can check it. But that's the gist of AI stuff. Please be careful, especially in your now academic stuff. When you do it depends on the teacher, depends on the stuff, especially in some subjects. Like for example, in this, when we do AI, like here you can do whatever. This doesn't leave anywhere. It's fine. But depends on, for example, thesis and so on. Please be careful with that. Any academic writing, it can really be a problem, especially even in a few years, most likely, if not immediately. So be careful with that. Of course, if you are doing research on AI stuff, of course, then you are referring to it, you do all this stuff properly. But if you think that AI stuff will kind of like do you a shortcut and do job instead of you, it's not. And don't think it would be. So it's besides, now it's the time for you as a human to make all your mistakes while you study. Now it's the time to make all the mistakes and to learn from them. So you don't want AI to take that also from you. Make mistakes. That's what will make you better later on. Now, any questions regarding AI? Or any of those topics we went through? All right. If not, then that would be it for today. As mentioned, we need to slightly early because I think they're having something soon at 10 minutes. But next time we will do VFX, and then slowly next week, I think, no, not next week, also a few lessons, and then we will do the presentations of your group work. But yes, thank you for today. Bye.